Hello, everybody, and welcome to the brand new first episode of The Red Show. Myself and Reese. We're starting this new one. Everybody else seems to have their own little show about just their team, so we thought we'd add United having their own show to the mix. And so I've got Reese and I who are going to be co hosting this every week. We're going to hope to have guests on along the way. Of course, please go and hit the subscribe button if you're new. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by New Year's Day. We are almost to 900, so please go and hit subscribe if you're new. Also, please hit the like button if you're enjoying it, and go check out our website. We have some brand new merch that's just come out in the last couple of weeks. Please go check that out. See if you might snag yourself something. We've got a lot of really good new merch that's just come out. But yeah, Reese, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on the show, and obviously I'll be part co-hosting, so it's a pleasure. It's good to start off with a little bit of a bang, and I think it's going to be a good show. But yeah, I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a good duo. You and I have always been very similar with our. You and I are an interesting duo because we're both very similar on a lot of the things we say about United, but we do have we are not exactly similar. We do have our points about United that we definitely have refused to agree on many different fronts. So while there will be a lot of agreeing and a lot of talking about and favorably about United, there will be parts that I know along the way you and I will definitely not agree.
It's very true. That's very true.
The one name I have to bring up is Daniel James, and that can already show.
To be fair, the people that know me well. I don't have an absolute hate against the guy. I don't hate him. I just don't particularly rate him as a Manchester United player. I don't rate him.
Yeah.
But I've always said about any player, if they can prove me right in terms of, take that back. If they can prove me wrong, that they can do better, I'll be happy. If they prove me right by actually not being a Man United player, then for me that kind of sucks, because I want any player that plays for us to do well. If he proves me wrong, that he can cut it here and he can be a proper staple on the squad, and he can prove on his weaknesses, then great. But in all respect, though, when I've watched him, he's never really done enough for me to say I'd rather have Anthony Elanga over him or Marcus Rashford. I'd rather have. I don't see Dan James a Man United player, and that's just respect.
Yeah. And I kind of think the same way along the lines with Anthony Martial and Fred. I would love if they proved me wrong. I want Martial to go back to 2 seasons ago and bang in 20 goals. I want Fred to be that dominant midfielder that we've bought him for 50 million. But as of right now, I see both of them needing to be sold, especially if that fund's a defensive midfielder. Pick up 25 million for Fred and about 40 million for Martial because he is still rather young. And I think with the right team, he could bang in a lot of goals.
Could do.
If we can sell both of them and pick up a midfielder, I'd much rather have that than to watch Martial be lazy and and look like he's going out for a Sunday stroll, and Fred passing the ball to the other team and scoring own goals by being out of position.
Yeah. My only concern is, though, is with the Fred out of position, the defence didn't shut down Che Adams either. They were just letting him squawk in. At least he actually made an attempt. I know it wasn't great. Like, he should be doing a little bit better. I mean, everybody knows I like Fred. But I'm still going to constructively criticise if it matters. In that sense, it does. That pass as well wasn't great either. That where he sent it sideways and sent it out the pitch. A lot of people are going to give Fred stick, and to be fair, it's common with football. It happens, so it's a no-brainer. Martial, with all due respect to him, I just cannot say if it's lazy. I'm just not sure what it is. It's hard to say because we know the talent. We know he has got talent. Exactly. We know he's got talent. It's just where is that player? Does he have a mental issue when it comes to competition for his position? Does he just not want to play for Man United anymore? Is he up for the challenge? I don't know. All I can say is I'm not sure if it's lazy. I just don't think he is a Man United player anymore. And if he ends up having a fantastic season, then great. But I don't want the whole personal cliques and fans around him to go, oh, he's had that great season, he's back. One season's not enough to say he's back.
It's been one season out of 5 for him. We've given him 5 years. We've had
2 good seasons, though. We've had 2 good seasons. His very first season under Van Gaal, he was fantastic as well.
But as soon as Van Gaal left, he was terrible. And then he was shocking for Mourinho's reign. And then he's had 1 good year. Funny enough, under Ole was pretty much his best year after Van Gaal left. And now he's gone back. And it makes me mad mostly because we're giving him preferable treatment over players who deserve it more. And I look to the game this last week against Southampton. putting Martial on the not Martial, putting Martial up front while we put Greenwood on the right. When last week against Leeds, we have Greenwood down the middle, and he has a fantastic game. And of course, the
It
one
was.
time Greenwood goes down the middle, he gets a goal. The one goal we scored against Southampton was Greenwood literally on this penalty spot coming down the
Mhm.
middle. So it frustrates me mostly when these players who don't fit this squad and should not be playing are being accommodated for over people who have proved themselves. It's like the same thing like you said with Daniel James. Why are we putting him on the right over Anthony Alongo? Why are we, switching around people and putting him in a preferable spot when he's not performing when he plays? If he performed like he did for Wales, I'd say yes, put him on the right. But until that point, we have to have the best prospects in their best spots. We cannot put people out of position because we want to give preferable treatment unless it's to someone who deserves it, like Bruno or Pogba. Pogba's been put out of position, but he's gotten 5 assists in 2 games.
Exactly. He's excelled, and it's great to see. Matt, you made an excellent point when you mentioned like Dan James like having to play on the right because Pogba's on the left, and we know that Pogba is a central midfield player, and we know Dan James is a left winger. We do know Dan James. There's certain teams where he's absolutely fantastic against, but that's like what 4 or 5 games in the whole season, and with all due respect, you want it for at least 15, 20 games. It's not great to have one player that's a specialist for one game, and then you have to wait until they come around before he turns up.
And if he doesn't turn up, then it's like, well, I've just wasted my time. I think
Yeah,
he's a
and
cut player. I think he's a cut player for us. And early, with him looking like he's not going to go, I think a loan move would have been brilliant for him. Send him
yeah,
off to Leeds for a year. Send him to Leicester on loan for a year. Maybe involve sending him on loan to Leicester and a deal for Ndidi, even though I don't want Ndidi at the club at all. But I would have loved to have them give us Yuri Tielemans, which I talked to Chris about. I'm like, hey, after that West Ham game, you wanna give us Yuri? He's fantastic, and he's like, you can have who you want. And I'm like, don't tempt me there because I'll take half your squad for this team.
no, you made a fair point. My only thing is though, like we do know what Dan James is capable of. It's just his end product that just needs a bit of work on. If he can work on that, then he'll be a better player than what he is. It's just a matter of timing, but 4 or 5, maybe 6 games out of season in the league where he's only good for isn't enough. But then again, the one thing I will give him credit for is his work rate. He will at least put a shift in, and I commend that in any player. I don't care who you are, whether I rate you or I don't rate you. If you've put in a work ethic, then great. I will commend that. I just don't particularly rate him, but he
Yeah,
has a work ethic, and I will respect that. But we'll see where it goes from there.
yeah.
We'll just keep.
I think he's got the one of the worst 3 finishing products out of all of our forwards at United. I think it's him, Martial, and maybe I don't know who else I'd put in our attacking group that would be in the bottom 3 of them, but he's top 3 in the team with work rate. His pressing is top 3. I think it's him. I think it's Bruno because Bruno is fantastic at keeping on people's butts, and I think it's Cavani because Cavani will run. We've seen it when people got on Pogba for being lazy. I remember last season because there was a clip of Cavani running right by him full sprint all the way down to the opposite end line, and Pogba had a big lead on him and just kind of jogged. So I think you look at those 3 are the 3 top. The thing with Bruno and Cavani though is they're also top 3 in finishing product, and
Yeah,
that's why they're so good. Is they're top 3 in their work rate, but they're also top 3 in their finishing, and that's where Dan James, like you said, is very much lacking.
yeah, I'm sure that game was I think it was the Villarreal game where you saw Cavani leaped. To be fair though, I think I'm looking at that game and I'm like, I'm not bothered if Cavani's running back compared to Pogba, because at least if Pogba's further forward, if you get the ball to him,
He'll
he's
go.
got he's going to make an impact. So I'm not particularly bothered if Pogba's jogging in that situation
Yeah,
because you know what he's capable of. But then again, like it's players they'll be asked to do certain roles, and but that's just the nature of the game. But in all respect to Martial's a great finisher as well. It's just we just don't see the best of him right now. But hopefully we see it. But like I said a couple of minutes ago, it's one season isn't enough to say to the whole Martial FC, which seems to be a thing. There's an FC for every player. One season isn't enough to say that he's back. He has to keep performing, and if he does that, great. Just like any player, if they can do that, then fantastic. But like I said, it's not agenda. It's just it's just you want to see them at your club excel, and if they don't excel, then you can't
You
keep
don't want
yourself.
them at the club. It's like I am with McTominay, like you said with Fred, where you like him, but you're not open to criticism. You're not against. I love McTominay. I've said multiple times he's my second favorite player at the club
Hmm.
by far, but only behind Luke Shaw.
That's
Which
right.
this has been great for me because no one can ever hate on Luke Shaw because he's been one of the best in the league, if not one of the best three in the world at that left back spot this last year and a half. So that's been great for me. But McTominay, I love him, but he's not open. He's it's not like he's not open to criticism. I just hate when it's the over criticism where it's like, oh, he's not shite. He's not
No, yeah,
great.
no, he's not.
He's not shite, but he's not. I'm not saying he's like some great player who's a first team player, but he's a good squad player to have. You want those kind of players coming off the bench where he can ping a ball from outside the box because he used to be a striker in the academy. He he's got one of the best 5 work rates in the entire team. I think he's just constantly going. His passing is not at snuff. I think his
But it's
passing is,
getting there. You can see
but
it
it's
is
getting
getting
there,
there,
and
which
he's
is good.
working for it. He
Hmm.
wants to get better, but his love of the badge. I know there's this whole, and if Sean was on here, he'd absolutely slander the crap out of me for this. But the passion is something that is so hated on nowadays. But when you really think about it, it's something very much you need players that are there for the badge. We saw it with one thing that I like to point out is Gerald Piqué. There was quotes brought up about him with this whole Ronaldo to City debacle of him saying, "I would never go to City because I love Manchester United, and Manchester United I would never betray." And you need those kind of players at your club where they're there not as much for the money. Like money's great, but they're there because they're like, I get to play for this team.
Hmm.
That's why I don't believe Lukaku whenever he says, "Oh, I love this team. I'm so glad to be here." Because he said that with West Brom, he said that with United, he said that with Inter, he said that now with Chelsea. So I can never really believe him when he says that it's a dream come true or I love this club because he seems to be that one dude in the FIFA 21 in the stands who's got a different jersey on every single match depending on who you play as in career mode.
It's a
So
possibility. It's a possibility. Who knows? I
yeah,
think. I think when he gets to a club, he loves to get so emotionally involved. I think that's why he says he loves this club, and I think he's so emotionally involved that he does in fact love it. But he will say it wherever he goes because I think he's genuinely proud to play football. It doesn't matter who he's playing for.
I think he
But
loves to play
it's
football,
an
but I
interesting
think,
comment.
it's a difference for me between I love to play football between this is a dream come true. Because he said it's a dream come true about United. He said it's a dream come true to go to Inter. And he said, and I get that it might be a dream for him to go to each club, but kind of being very repetitive takes the wind out of the sails, especially
Yeah,
for
I
a
get
club,
that.
especially for fans of a club he used to be at. Because then it sounds like what he said when he came to United about it being a dream was just bull. And it makes Inter fans probably say, well, that was crap. If you said that to us, you said that to United as well, and now you said that to Chelsea. And I think, you got to switch up what you say if you're going from club to club like that, because it just
No,
kind of
that's
takes
fair.
the wind out.
That's a fair comment. I agree. That's a fair comment. That's a fair comment.
But yeah, but McTominay, you need guys who will play for that badge.
Yeah, yeah, it's
You
good to
need
have
those
that.
kind of players.
We can see it in some players. We can see it. To be fair, we can see it in Dan James.
Yeah,
He clearly does
he
play with
loves it here.
heart on
He
his sleeve.
loves it here.
He clearly plays with his heart on his sleeve, and he clearly plays for the club in the same way. And I respect that. I just don't think he's good enough for us. But
Yeah.
then again, though, like you mentioned, squad player, and if he's perfectly happy being a squad player, but he wants to try and improve, then I've got
Yes,
no issue.
thank you.
I've got no issue with that. I have no issue with that
It's the
because at
people
least
like
he's going
Eric
to work.
Bailly. It's the people like Eric Bailly who are not a first team player and are not at that ability, but believe they are rightfully owed a first team spot last year.
Yeah, no one, in my opinion, is rightfully with the first team spot. I don't care who you are, whether you're Pogba, Bruno, even David De Gea on goal,
You prove yourself.
Maguire as well. I don't care if you play all those games, all that. No one's entitled to a first team spot. You've got to earn it. Like,
And
and they
Bailly
do.
never earned it.
That's why they're in the team sheet.
Yeah, Bailly never earned it because he never could stay healthy. But then, his contract thing is coming into dispute and his family's talking all this crap and saying that he deserves first team minutes. And it's like, well, how about instead of, talking all this crap, how about you try not to get into a car accident and get hurt right after you come back from another injury?
Yeah,
It
it's
seems
a
like
shame
this
though,
could
'cause he
be the
is a decent
class.
defend. He is a decent defender. It's
I
just
think
it's hard to call upon someone who's not
yeah,
reliable enough because his injury record
it's awful.
isn't that good. Exactly, it's not that good, and it's hard to call upon someone like that. So,
Yeah, like I
what
would
more
love.
can you
I think
say?
he's one of my favorite players when it comes to his personality because his shite house of doing step overs in the box in his own box and all that sort of. I think it's hilarious, and I think he's a good defender. But dude, stay healthy. I would love again, like you said, prove me wrong. It's like with Axel going on loan now to Villa. Stay healthy all year. Be a really good defender for them and help them climb and be in the top of the top 8.
Hmm.
And I would gladly welcome you back next year and go, yes, he deserves game time. He deserves minutes. Not first team, but he deserves minutes.
That's fair. I
But
look
not
at
if you're not doing anything and you're not staying healthy.
true. I think when I look at that's why I always say I want Lindelof in the team more than Eric Bailly because at least Lindelof is
Stay healthy.
called upon exactly. And if Lindelof had the physicality and the pace of Eric Bailly, we would never have needed to go out and get another centre back because Lindelof would have it all because
He would be exactly who he
Lindelof can
needed.
pass the ball exactly because Lindelof can pass the ball. It's just his physicality, but he's very good at press resisting.
Oh,
He
yeah.
is very good at that.
He
So
rarely is the
it's
guy that makes that mistake. As much as I'm not a big fan of Lindelof. I will say it. I've said it before. I think he's not nearly as good in the air as he needs to be as a center back. He's not quick enough as he needs to be, especially along someone like Maguire.
yeah,
And I think just one on one, he is one of our worst defenders when it comes to taking somebody on one.
it's true.
But his passing is elite and he stays healthy.
Hmm.
That's what
If
you
he had
need.
that physical factor, he would be even better than what he is.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
would
hands
be,
down.
and
If he
that's
had,
even myself, like, as a big fan of Lindelof,
yeah,
be the exact same. If he had that physicality to his game, he'd be fantastic. But he doesn't have it. But he has different attributes that are useful to the team, and that's why he's always called upon. It's because
yeah,
we know in certain stages he's reliable, and he's going to become a squad player. We know that because there's going to
yeah.
be Rafael Varane. Do I have a problem with that? No, because at least I know he's going to be available all season
We have a
if
reliable
we need.
backup. If we have an injury, there's someone behind now. I also like
Exactly.
hearing that there's no more. I don't know if you've seen the news. There's no more youth outgoing going to be happening this year, at least in this window. They've officially announced that anybody who's here right now in the youth will not be going on loan. So that means Ted and Mengi and Alonga and Ahmad Diallo are all going to be staying with the club for the. And
Good.
I think it's brilliant. I think Ted and Mengi proved himself at his little time that he did have at Derby. I think he proved himself to be a very apt defender in the championship for a team that's
Yep.
not
Hmm.
very good and looking to be going down this next year with Rooney. As much as Rooney's trying his heart out, and I commend Rooney for doing everything he can to try and keep this Derby team up. He was Mengi was a very solid center back. I think
Yeah, he was.
he's got. I think with the outgoing of Axel and with Bai kind of being an uncertainty at this point. I think we'll see Mengi get a lot of cup games and a lot of Norwich and Newcastle games where we may see him play like Axel did, and I think he's deserved it way more than Bailly has because
Hmm.
he stayed healthy, and when he was healthy, he was great, and then he just got hit with an unfortunate injury.
True. I agree. It'll be interesting to see what goes from there. Mengi, I think, could be an excellent addition to the defence midfield slot, centre back slot. Sorry, defence midfield. I've just got Garner in my head because also I want to see him make it.
Can't wait to
Um,
see him make his debut.
but I agree with the Mengi comments. Eric Bailly, if he is able to stay fit, then realistically, I look at cup games and other games as well. We could have a partnership of Bailly and Lindelof, Bailly and Mengi, Lindelof and Mengi. There's so many good options there where we have the depth where
Yeah,
we can say we don't need to play Maguire and Varane in these games. We can actually afford to just be like, you know what, you're not in the squad today. End of. Deal with it. And I think that's great. And it'll just be a matter of having faith in those players, and we'll see where it goes from there. Because at the end of the day, faith is important. It's just as much as working hard. You gotta have a little bit of faith in yourself and your ability. And fans need to have a little bit of faith in some players as well. Like, obviously, injury prone players, they are gonna be 2 3 games in, they're gonna play 90 minutes, and the next thing you know, boom, sadly there is an injury because we see it all the time. But regardless, those 2 or 3 games, they're gonna make it
they're going to
at
be
least an
good.
effort. Yeah, exactly. So it gives us something. It's just a matter of where we go from here, and
Yeah,
I'm hoping that if everybody recovers from this injury, he actually stays fit I hope the same for any other player that's got injury concerns. They come back and they just shrug them off because it looks like Shaw's shrugged his off. So
Yeah,
why
Shaw.
can't so
I'm
why can't
excited to see
everybody?
Tellez and Shaw back again because both of them being injured has been, I think, definitely something that's hurt. And it's one reason I say I really hope Ole does well and becomes our manager of the future for years to come. It's because I think he's now built a squad that he can do a lot with and probably get some trophies with. But more than that, it's his ability. Like you said, you don't want someone bashing you. And I think that's one thing that Jose Mourinho does that is the reason he's gone from team to team to team is he bashes people in public. And I think that's one thing that Ole does not do that can be such a huge thing is talk them up and like to the media, talk up everybody. Do not say a bad word about anybody. But he is not afraid. We've heard it before from many players. He's hairdryer treatment. He's given the hairdryer to tons of players in his tenure. But that's private. He doesn't speak about him doing that. He doesn't speak about what he says to them in public, but he's not afraid to get on them in private. When you go public with stuff like that, we saw what it did to Shaw with Mourinho.
Yeah.
It ruined him for a couple of years when we brought Shaw in as a reigning PFA player of the season at Southampton. And it ruined him as a player for 2 years while under Mourinho. And now he's back with Ole, and he's one of the best in the world at his spot now. So I think it's great having a manager who will talk his team up entirely in public, but then is not afraid to bash in private. And that's one thing I think we have and we've needed. Because that's how Sir Alex was. Sir Alex wasn't very vocal in the media about being against anybody. He wouldn't diss a lot of his own players in the media. But the hairdryer treatment was coined because of Sir Alex.
He wasn't afraid to call them out, but he always said if it was one time, then after that it was forgotten.
Yeah, he didn't keep on them about the same thing unless it was a repeated mistake. If someone made a mistake in a game, yeah, he'd get on you about it, but then he's like, "All right, it's done."
Yeah, one time and it's over with, but
there's no reason to go on about it.
Exactly. I completely agree.
And that's for me. A lot of players like I get with Wan-Bissaka, his back post positioning is dreadful. But I've heard shouts for people saying we need to buy a right back to start over him. And for me, I just don't get why. I get there's back post problems, but when it comes down to it, you see a guy who last year put Mbappe and Di Maria in his pocket against PSG.
Mm-hmm.
Sterling stays in his pocket every time we play City. I have not seen one winger really do well against him. So I don't get the shouts for please bring in a right back to take him out of the lineup. And he's healthy. He played pretty much every game for us last year.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, I don't know. And he's the one thing everybody hated on him the most about his offensive production. I think he massively improved on last year. I mean, 2 goals and a bevy of crosses that were so much better than he was.
Yep.
I don't get the unnecessary. Our fan base is so known for unnecessary hatred.
Nothing we can do. Like honestly, there's nothing you can do about it. You can defend a player as much as you want. There's still going to be hate. There's still going to be comments. But he has improved on aspects of his game. He just has to work on that positional awareness, and that can be done. He's only 23, so it's not a problem. So it's not a problem.
Well, he's a 30-year-old who's the back end of his career.
Exactly. So it's not a big deal. We've got Dallo there behind him. We've got that is a bit of competition there because Dallow's attack minded.
Yeah.
But him defensively, he isn't particularly great, but he at least has some form of competition to keep Wan-Bissaka on his toes. So we'll see where it goes from there. I can only wait and see. I can't really say much until as the season progresses. If the same mistakes constantly repeat themselves in games, then the manager will have to look at it and think, how do we fix this problem? Because if it does become a major problem, then they could easily put in Ethan Laird eventually. Because obviously not right now, but they could if they want to at a later time.
Last year, or they could recall Laird and be like, "All right, do a shift."
They could do. Wan-Bissaka still needs that season. He still needs it because he's shown his reliability to this team and he's shown what he can bring. He doesn't have to be attack-minded if Luke Shaw's going to be that player. We just need to wait and see. So it's still a long season ahead. We've only played two games, so it's not too big a deal. It's not too big a
Yeah,
deal yet.
I'm not too into everybody right now.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
moving on from the team, because as much as I love talking about the team, we have, this whole entire series as we go on and on and on to talk about this, about the team and our opinions. We will talk, though, about what just happened today, and that's, of course, we got our Champions League group. And for people that did not watch, that are United fans that did not watch the draw, we drew Villarreal, Atalanta, and Young Boys from Spain, Italy, and Switzerland, respectively. I think that's a winnable group. I think that's a group we top. I think there's troubles. I think Villarreal's not going to roll over for us. I think Atalanta may be the one game we draw. But I don't think this is a game we should. This isn't a group that we shouldn't be at the top of at the end of the games.
Oh yeah, I agree. There's we could win this group, and the only thing is Atalanta scored 98 goals in Serie A last year. They're going to be an attacking threat, but they can be got at. They can be got at, no problem. Villarreal be a stern defensive test. Young Boys. To be fair, I haven't watched them since we played them a couple of years ago, so I
2 years
can't
ago in
really
Europa, yeah.
exactly. I barely watched them, so we should just steamroll them. But Villarreal and Atlanta, they'll be interesting ties. I think we could certainly do well there. I do expect us to win the group. I think Atlanta are going to finish second.
I do too. I
I think
think
they'll
that
finish
is
second.
the. I think that team, and I was asked my opinion by a group chat that I'm in about what I think of the team in concerns of the group, and I said they are a really good team, but I think we'll be all right. And I mean, I'm looking at BSC Young Boys. The guy who you remember the Southampton game, the 9-0 game, the guy who got sent off for the dreadful tackle on McTominay in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
He's now on loan, apparently, I think, over there.
Oh, so you'll give us a man advantage then.
But besides that, I'm seeing Fashnat, who I know a little bit of, Suleimani, I know who's over there. But besides that, I look at this team, I don't see much. I see Yannick Toure, who used to play for Newcastle, and he was dreadful. I mean, if you're not good enough to play at Newcastle, you're surely not good enough to be playing against any Premier League opposition.
Agreed.
So yeah, I see it being kind of, and they show it's set up as Villarreal, Manchester United, Atalanta, and Young Boys. I think it's going to be United, Atalanta, Villarreal, Young Boys. I don't think Young Boys gets a point.
I think if they'll be lucky if they get a draw somewhere in the group. I just don't know where they're going to get it. I think they will get at least a point, but
as long as it's not against us.
Yeah, we should realistically win this group though. But
I don't want to Shakhtar.
Interesting. Yeah, it'll be an interesting group though. We cannot just go in and say we're going to win every game comfortably because It's European football. We all know it has upscale moments where it can just hit you by surprise. So it's better to just wait and see. But I don't particularly care. I'm looking forward to it. I just can't wait. The Champions League starts September 14th. Just hurry up and give us 3 weeks already. Just let it happen.
I think it's Wednesday nights, I think, are Champions League nights.
We play on the Wednesday, I think, yes.
Yeah, and for me, I'm happy because, it actually kind of sucks for me because I wish it was starting 1 week later because 1 week later, our first game would actually be on my birthday, on my 22nd birthday.
Oh,
because my birthday's on a Wednesday this year, and it's the 22nd, so it's the week right after. So I'm like, just missed me. I was so excited this year. I was like, I might have a Champions League game on my birthday this year. They started a week too early and kind of screwed me.
To be fair, though, depending on the ties, you could have a game on your birthday, though, because they won't play every game on that week, though. So
I'm really, really fingers crossed, hoping they do. I'm going to look it up and see if I can actually.
But the bonus, though, is if we are playing our first game on the Wednesday night, we don't get an early kickoff on the Saturday because they've banned half 12 kickoffs.
Yep, I think that's a brilliant idea. I think one thing the Premier League has done two things that I'm really happy with, and that's banning the half the 12 noon kickoffs because for me that means I don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. anymore to watch a freaking game, and that's been absolutely dreadful. And two, them not calling the soft fouls. I've been super happy to see. The foul on Bruno was a foul on him. It was a foul. I mean, you go through the back of a player, it should be a foul. But, it happens. And it's just like it used to be 10, 15 years ago. Hard fouls happen. Sometimes
Yeah,
they
I
don't get
agree.
called. But I'd rather see, some fouls that were fouls definitely last year now being allowed than seeing the pansy stuff that we had last year where every soft little flop was called a foul and called a penalty. I think it's going to make the game. The glory days for me were back in 2000 to 2005, where it was tough soccer with bevies of teams with amazing squads. I mean, you look back at that Milan squad from the mid 2000s. You look back at the Bayern squad from the mid 2000s, the United squad, the Arsenal squad. You know, the world was chock full of just amazing squads, and you could go out a player. You can go
Oh
out a
yeah.
player. You could have a little bit of a nasty tackle, and it wasn't as big of a deal. And I
It
loved
was proper
it.
good football. It was proper good football, and it was
Proper
men playing
football.
against each other. And the technical aspect, it was absolutely fantastic.
You had to
It
be
was
technically sound because you could not just get away with getting touched and going down. And I don't think that should be something that I'm happy because I think something that's being taken away now this year is, we'll see it with Salah, we'll see it with Grealish, we'll see it with, I think, Bruno as well a little bit, where players will go down. And last year it was a foul. This year, get the hell up and keep going. And that's going to
yeah,
make teams and players have to adjust their game and get better
massively,
because you cannot rely on dropping. I think
massively.
we'll
I
see a lot
completely
of
agree.
yellows. Yellows for simulations are going to be big this year.
Hope so. I hope so because it'll teach them. It'll teach them.
Yeah, I think letting it go and just not calling it a foul isn't punishing anybody, and it's not setting the right example because you're just kind of going, I'm just not going to call anything. I think you start calling simulation fouls, and you start giving out cards for flopping to the ground, and you're going to see players stop real quick.
If it's a deliberate dive, don't even give them a yellow card. Just send them off.
Yeah, and even if and people say, oh, but you'll whine if it's a United player. No, I'm not that biased to where if a United player, if I see Bruno go down like that, I'm going to be just as pissed if it was freaking Grealish for City.
I hate diving full stop. I hate it.
Yeah. I think it's a disgraceful action to do in general.
Yeah.
I just don't like it. So if it means one of my players gets a yellow or gets sent off because they're deciding to be cheap little pricks, they deserved it. I'm going to be pissed at them for getting themselves sent off by doing something stupid. Not at the
Agreed.
ref for sending them off.
I agree. I completely agree.
This is going to be. I think you and I were talking about group of death. My group of death. I know you said your group of death is kind of looking to be that group C where it's going to be a little bit difficult. My group of death is either group A or group B. I think those are just. I mean, City, Paris, Leipzig, Bruges, and Atletico, Liverpool, Porto, Milan. That's tough. Milan is a very good team. Of course, your second team, AC Milan. Second, probably third after Rangers, if I really think about it. But they're a good team. And even you aren't sure they're going to make it out this group.
I think they'll be fighting out for second. Not top spot. I think they'll be if they get a string of good runs, if they win like their 2 or 3 games on the bounce, or at least if they pick up like 2 wins and a draw by the third game, like by the fourth game, sorry, like when the group goes into the second the second phase of the group, then they stand a good chance, but they have to get the results against Liverpool and Atletico. But they need to have, if they can get a good win in Portugal or even against Porto in Italy, they stand a good chance. They just need to avoid not losing silly points. But it's an interesting group. And the Man City group's just it's pretty much us from last year, except it's not Istanbul, it's Club Brugge, but it's a tough test for Man City, and we always talk about like Man City always get the easy groups, so they always progress. Now they've got a hard group. Let's see what
They've got the top 2 hardest group in the draw this year. And I looked at the schedule, and they do skip over my birthday. They have match week 1 on the 14th and 15th, and the match week 2 is the 28th and 29th. So they just skip me over, which I'll be fine. I'm not going to cry about it like I'm Neymar. I'm not going to cry like I'm Neymar on his sister's birthday or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. they've got a big test with some of the teams in there, different styles of football. There's not an easy win for Man City, but Club Brugge probably. But Leipzig and PSG aren't easy wins. They're going to be tough tests. But if they win that group, then
My hat's off to them.
fair enough. If they win their group, then fair enough. But if they come second, then people will be thinking, okay, where did they go wrong? And I'm thinking the only way they've come second is if they lose one game to PSG. But
I think
we'll
they
see.
have to sweep every. I think they have to. They cannot drop. I think they'll beat both games for Club Brugge. I think Club Brugge will get walked.
Yeah,
I feel bad for them. It's kind of like when that one team, I forget who, the two owners who were representing them smiled when they got the group of death and were kind of just like, we're going to get so much money and lose every single game. And I think that's how it'll be for Club Brugge. But City, I think where they'll go wrong, they cannot drop any points to Leipzig.
yeah.
Because a loss to Leipzig could mean them going third.
That's
You
true.
never know. Leipzig's a very good team. They could even take points off PSG, honestly.
Oh, they could.
If City
Easily
drops,
could.
if City drops a full game, a full 3 points to Leipzig, that might not even. It might be the difference between them being first in the group and out and off to Europa.
It's a possibility. It is a possibility. We'll see what happens when their group games start. We'll see. But for us, I'm just happy with our group. I think we've got such a
Yeah,
balanced group that it's a winnable group. We have to get over because we can't go into the Europa League again. Like I really do not want to see mine in the Europa League. But I'm hoping if we get through, we just take it by storm and we see where we go because we could progress. But to the very far stages, it's just we've got to pace ourselves and not rush it. But we've got a good squad, so I'm looking for our group. I think the toughest test we have is probably Villarreal's defensive abilities, but Atalanta, from a scoring sense, they
it's going to be
will
tough.
they will attack us heavy because that's what they do. But because they attack so much, they're similar to Leeds. They'll leave some space. We'll be able to get at that, no problem. So I'm looking forward to the test we have.
I
I
think
like,
Villarreal at home is my game I'm most scared of because our away form, we're one game now away from setting the record for most away games going undefeated in the Premier League. We're at 27. I think 28 will be this weekend against Wolves, actually. But our home form has been atrocious. I think it's going to be better now that we've got fans back. But against a low block defensive team like Villarreal at home, where we're not sometimes as good, probably where I'm most nervous.
I think that game's a good measure of where we are in terms of breaking certain teams down. I think that's a good measure. We'll find out what happens when we play them. I'm looking forward to it. I'm until I see how we play against them in the pretty much the first game since the final. We'll see what happens. But for now, I'm just a sense of we are the favourites to win the group. Let's show this group why we're the favourites, and let's show the rest of the teams in this league. With all respect, you should put a bit of respect on our name and fear us because we're still Man United. We just see what happens. But I just like the fact that we've strengthened in certain places. We're still lacking a midfielder, but
Ruben
I
Neves
look at
apparently being agreed by Man United and Wolves. Apparently, there's an agreed fee rumored for about 42 million right now.
if there's something, then we'll see. But I've got no idea. I haven't seen any agreements
Yeah.
yet.
I've
But
heard a couple
we'll see.
things about an agreed the personal fees the personal terms have been agreed and that it's being rumored they're negotiating for around 42 million right now. If he comes in, if we can get Neves, I think before the end of the transfer window, I think this is a very very dangerous side that people are going to underestimate and be that are going to, take people by surprise.
Yeah,
But, and of course, like I said, and, we'll now move into, with me speaking of our away record on the line this week, and we'll speak on the Wolves game to wrap it up. What you think going into this game? What do you think the lineup's going to be like? What do you think the score is going to be like? How do you think it'll go?
they've always been a bit of a nightmare test for us since they came back to the league under Nuno. Obviously, that's no longer the case. So now under Bruno Lage, it's an interesting tie. It's Wolves different. There are different Wolves to what we're used to as well. So I'm not entirely sure in terms of we haven't played this team under under Bruno's under Bruno's regime. It's going to be difficult, but I still like the fact that this is the game where we potentially could see Varane and Sancho start together.
Yeah.
We could, or at least one of them could start. I would like it to be both, see where we go. But the fact is, even if we do get them in, that means we're going to be so much better pressing from the back and from the front. We're going to have a much more dominant side. I think we could take the game to Wolves and just overload them with the press. I like our chances. In terms of what I think of in terms of what I think about Bruno's team coming against us, uh, he is going to look to get his team built in a compact shape, be as narrow as they can when they need to be. When the attackers on the counter attack, they will look to expand highly and quickly as possible. And if they do, that means we'll be able to just shut them off, pick them apart one by one, and I'd be okay with that. In terms of the lineup, same old, same old. David Gea in goal. I'm going to go Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw fullbacks. I'm going to give Varane the nod, even though I think Lindelof could start. I'm going to just go with this. Like, I'd like to see him start. So Varane and Maguire at centre back, midfield. I'm going to go Matic and Van de Beek. I think Matic and Van de Beek is going to be the midfield there. And the front four, simple. I'm going to go with Sancho and Pogba as the wide players, Bruno Fernandes and then number 10. And I'm going to go with Greenwood to play up front. I think Cavani will come off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I see mine's very similar. I do think De Gea back in net. Of course, it's great to see Henderson back training again, having him recover from COVID. Having anybody recover from COVID is a beautiful thing. I'm still waiting right now. Like I said on my Twitter, my grandmother has contracted COVID, and so we're kind of waiting for her to kick it and beat it. So, but anybody beating COVID is a great thing. So it's great to have him back. I think honestly, a lot of people were mad at having Cavani be not back in training till this last week. I think it's a beautiful move by Ole, a guy who was very unsure if he wanted to stay, was very homesick, giving him time after an injury to rest, stay home after the Copa America, have a bunch of time with your family, and come back extremely rested, especially with our opening ties not being very tough games. I mean, I think for me, I said this, I think our first really difficult tie that I'm worried about losing is October against Leicester. Well, then I don't really, until then, I think they're winnable games. So I think giving him that time to rest is beautiful. But yeah, I'll go to Gea in net, Shaw and Wan-Bissaka, of course, and I'm going to agree with you. I think Varane deserves the nod to go partner with Maguire, and I think that just makes it great because we have Lindelof coming off the bench who can come on late and give us a great, come bring them on when they're tired. Take either Maguire or Varane off maybe the 70th minute like he loves to do.
Massively.
And let Lindelof spend 20 minutes pinging balls over the top of everybody and hoping somebody quick like Sancho or Greenwood gets on the other end of it and gone and away and scores.
Exactly. I agree with you. I
think midfield, as much as I want to put Donny in the midfield, and I think he deserves to be in that midfield, I do think he'll be there, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Fred again. Of course, I would love to say McTominay is going to go into the midfield because I think this would be a great game for him.
He's out for 2 months.
But of course, yes, he's out. Oh my God, crying right now. My top three players all injured to start the year with Shaw, Rashford, and McTominay. Of course, if anybody does not know and they're watching, McTominay got a groin operation done because he picked up a little bit of an injury against Leeds. They weren't really sure. They played him 20 minutes against Southampton. He's kind of talked to the physios and gone, I need to get this sorted. And I'm so happy he's done this instead of pulling a Rashford and putting it off for so long that it debilitated him as a player. So we saw that with Rashford last year. It debilitated him a lot as a player. Rashford having that ankle and that shoulder injury. So I think McTominay making a very mature decision at his age, 24, 25, making a very mature decision to listen to the physios and go, yeah, I'm going to get operated. I know I'll miss 2 months, but it's early season. I'll go into the knife. So I think Matic and Donny would be who I go. And then, of course, I think I'll agree with you there. I think we'll see Sancho and Pogba on the wings again. And I think Sancho will get his first start. Greenwood up top has been phenomenal in the first game and even when he switched there after Martial went off in the second game. And then, of course, Mr. Bruno Fernandes, always going to be at that number 10.
Yeah.
It's such a deadly front four. And I
if we
think
do get that, I agree. I think if we do get the midfield signing, though, I think we may see the end or the phasing out of the 4-2-3-1 the long term. I think if we do sign a midfielder before
We'll see the four three
Tuesday's
three.
deadline day, yeah, before deadline day, but there's no guarantee. We don't know.
I would love to see. For me, I would love to see the 4-3-3 come into play later on, and then see Pogba drop down to that wing position when Rashford comes back. I've said this time and time again. My God squad that wins the league and goes far in all the cups and maybe wins another cup is De Gea, Sean Wan-Bissaka, Varane Maguire, Neves, Camavinga, or Saul. I don't care who the hell it is. Just get me a freaking defensive midfielder. And then give me Pogba and Bruno being able to go forward, and then Rashford, Greenwood, and Sancho up front. Three guys who can play all three forward positions. I think that is one of the most deadly things in football. When you can have three forwards, we saw it with. It reminds me of, as much as I hate saying his name, Tevez, with Rooney and Ronaldo of 2008. Three guys who could play all three forward positions and could cross like this the entire game and not really be uncomfortable.
Yeah, interchangeable. That's what we need.
Interchangeable makes
It's
it so much harder for
it's
a
the same
defense.
as City. It's the same with Manchester City. It's the same with
Yeah.
Liverpool to a degree as well. They interchange, but it's the two wingers that interchange, and Firmino stays in the middle, but he drops back.
Yeah.
Man City like to freely rotate, and if we can just keep that going, we certainly stand a good chance. I don't mind the 4-2-3-1. I've said it numerous times to people before. I don't mind it as long as it's not two defensive midfielders. It's one with a box-to-box player beside it to take the ball forward. There's numerous players I'd have in that role. I've said numerous times I'd like Neuhaus, I'd like Goretzka. That's never going to happen, which is kind of crap. But we've got Pogba there as well, like as an option, and it certainly works. But it just
Neuhaus,
depends on what we go with.
Neuhaus mentioned, I've agreed with you on this. That's my German team. So as much as it makes me sad because I love him for Borussia Mönchengladbach,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been such a crucial player for us. I also love to see him in United jersey.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Neuhaus. I'm a big fan of Weigl as a defence midfielder as well.
Yeah.
So I would happily have a German
And I
midfield
know
behind Bruno Fernandes. I would.
we talked about Leimer from Leipzig as well, who you're a big fan of.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about bringing in a box-to-box midfielder, bringing in someone you know very well, which is Kessié from Milan.
Love him.
I think there's so many potential signings here that we could make and would just make this squad be so incredibly dangerous.
I just like where we are right now as well, where we are still dangerous, but if we add more to it, we're even more dangerous.
Yeah, we're not at the
I like
top.
that prospect.
We're not at our ceiling yet. We have improvements that can still happen that'll make us better and better and better. I think honestly, in the end, I'm happy with how we've handled the right back situation. I think keeping Dallo and not bending over. We've had a recent history of bending over for whatever fee a team tells us they want us to buy. Maguire 80 million, Fred 50 million. We paid a lot of money for some players that we did not
It
need.
looks like we're doing things right, and I like that. And as a United fan, that's what you want. Is you want to see your club dominate the market as much as on the field, and we're just going to take it from there. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, we saw Sancho, who would have been 100 something million last year, ended up being 17 million up front this year. And then instead of bending over for Atletico and paying for Trippier, we've gone, do it.
We're going to
We'll
give
keep Dallo.
Dallo a chance, yeah.
Yeah. And there was the whole thing, of course, with your side with Milan. There's this whole back and forth of, is Dallo going to go to Milan? Is he not going to go to Milan? I think if he would have gone, I wouldn't have been too upset. But I'm a lot happier that he stayed, and we're saving that money that we would have spent on Trippier. And like you and I have said, we'll say it over and over again. Fans will say it over again until we're blue in the face. Save that for a midfielder.
Massive.
Bring in Neves, bring in Camavinga, bring in Saul. All three of those. I think it's funny enough because the one player out of Saul, Neves, and Camavinga that isn't being touted as we're trying to get rid of him is Neves.
Yeah.
He's the only
Personally,
player where I think the team's not going, we need to get him gone now.
you know who I would avoid Camavinga.
I would too.
I personally avoid him, and people are going to say, "Why would you say that?" I was like, "It's every time there's been rumors of Camavinga coming up, he's always reiterated where he wants to play. It's either Spain or for PSG. If he does not consider United as an option, why should we bother?
You reminds me
If
of
he
Holland
doesn't,
last year.
exactly, it screams Di Maria 2.0. Doesn't want to come here in the first place. He just wanted PSG anyways, the ultimate platform. Di Maria, bit of a snake in the grass, but he's a quality player. He is a quality player. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. Like, he is. But he never wanted to come here. And there was
It
a lot of
reminds me of the Alexis Sanchez situation.
yeah,
Came
exactly.
here, said he loved the club, but in reality, he was always looking elsewhere.
Yep. And that's the end of it, really. And if Camavinga came here, great. That's a top talent for the future, and we can slot him into central midfield and defensively as well. Great. If he doesn't want to come here, though, don't force it on him. I would like if we got Weigl from Benfica or Koopmeiners from Alkmaar or Benacer from Milan, even though it would weaken them a bit. I wouldn't really care. But
And
at least those
Zachariah
are
for me,
the.
Zachariah. I'd love to get a double of Zachariah and Neuhaus from Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Oh, it'd be
It's only
fantastic.
costing about 60, 70 million, and that secures that midfield completely.
Exactly.
That midfield
I'd have
becomes one of the
Goretzka
most
as a
dangerous
box
in
to
the
box
world.
player. I'd have Goretzka as a box to box player. I like
Oh my
Nicola.
gosh, Goretzka. As
I
much
like
as it won't happen, I want him
yeah.
so bad.
I like
I want
Nicola. I like
Kimmich.
Nicola Dorsch. I like Nicola Dorsch. He's going to be a future defensive midfielder for Germany. He's a fantastic midfielder. He plays in I think it's Genk or Ghent. It's one of those two he plays for, but he's still a solid midfielder. Great. There's so many young players, not just German. I'm a big German fan, but there's so many out there. This team lacks a player, funnily enough, like what Chelsea have. We lack a Jorginho type
I
player
would
that can
love
just.
it. I've said this before. I would take Jorginho before I take anybody else from that Chelsea team.
He
I
just
would not
sits there
take
and
the
sprays the ball, but he can
yeah.
defend, and that's
He
what we
just
need.
sprays. He just
That's
has a
why
spray
Neves is
card of
right.
just brilliant passes.
Exactly. That's why Neves is right. If we had gotten a Weigl, that'd have been perfect because he'd have been perfect for this team. But that's never going to happen. Gutted. But if we got a player similar to Jorginho who isn't Jorginho but is at least a couple of years younger, then that works. And Neves is already suited to the league. Put him in front of the midfield, and we've got something because he can
Yeah.
defend, but he knows how to pass the ball. So it doesn't give me any worries at all. But I just don't know if we will sign anybody
No,
before Tuesday's deadline day. I don't know
I
if we
don't
will.
think so either. And for me, I'll throw my two names. My two names, Premier League proven, passing ability is great, defending ability is great, is Neves, and then a player who's just came to the league, playing for a team that's just been promoted. You've heard me talk about him. Everybody's heard me pretty much talk about him. I featured him and talked about him heavily on my Burnley transfer targets episode. I'm moving him up to, I think he could be United level in a year, and that's Frank Onyeka, who's now playing for Brentford, who's come over from FC Midtjylland over in the Danish league, and was at 23 years old called the best midfielder in the entire Danish league. It is the Danish league, so it's not like we're talking about the French league here or the Spanish team, the Spanish league, but it's one of those they always are around. In Europa and Champions League, you always see a Danish or a Belgian team
It's
sniffing
true.
around the Champions League and Europa League. And he was playing for one of the best teams in the Danish league and was being touted at 23 as a defensive midfielder, one of the best in the league, if not the best. And he is someone who I've watched film on. I've watched him play. I watched him play for Brentford already this year when he's played. And he's exactly what Neves is, but at 23.
Good thing
Defensively,
is Neves is the exact same. Neves is the
yeah.
exact same age, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I
I
think
think
both,
I think
yeah.
either suits. I don't know why we've not done anything on the Sol Niguez rumours. I think he'd be perfect for us as well. But
I think Saul's because he's so close to Chelsea.
if we don't get him, then that's a player we miss out on. But there's always going to be a player you miss out on. You're never going to get the absolute favourites you want, but you just move on with what you've got. And if we get somebody in to sit in that position, and it frees up McTominay as a box-to-box player in rotation with Pogba in that position as well, or Van de Beek, I don't have a problem with that. But we'll see where it goes from there. We can only go with what we've got. If we don't get a midfielder by Tuesday, then we just run it.
Garner.
We just run with what we've got. And yep, Garner's there as well.
Oh,
Um,
Garner. Wait, no, Garner's gone back to I think he's gone back
he's
to
gone.
Forest, actually. Yeah, he has.
Yeah, he has. Yeah. To be
Because
fair,
he
it's no
signed the new
problem.
contract. He signed the
Still
new
got
contract.
Galbraith.
And
Still got Galbraith though. Still got Galbraith.
Galbraith, I've talked about now. If we're talking about people on Twitter that I have a heck of a lot of respect for, do an absolute shift and are extremely brilliant when they talk about United, and that's United Dan MUFC Daniel on Twitter, who is pretty much his whole entire Twitter is the academy. He and I have had discussions about how happy we are to see Galbraith finally being released from his center back prison of last year and being released at that defensive midfielder position like he so rightfully deserved and has that his natural position at defensive midfielder. He's
Easily.
being released again. He's such a good talent.
I like him. I like the three midfielders that are in the academy, but one of them's obviously up here, Dundee United. That's Dylan Levitt.
Yeah.
I like Levitt, I like Garner, I like Galbraith. One of them's going to make it. I think, as much as I'd like all three, I think Galbraith's the one that's going to make it.
Yeah.
But I like what we've got there. I like Hannibal as a future number 10 for us. Like for the first team, I like Elanga and Shola Shorter as wingers. I like Joe Hugo and Charlie McNeil, strikers. Teddy Menge, Will Fish, centre backs. I like Kovar, Bishop, goalkeepers. Laird, Devine. There's fullbacks. Charlie Savage, a midfielder.
Yeah. Charlie Savage has been phenomenal. Shout out to the Savage family for just producing some top quality fucking players. Because you have the dad Robbie, who was phenomenal in his day, and then you have the son Charlie. And I've watched him all last year, and this year he's been left-footed midfielder is such a special thing, especially when they're a good player, and he's got such great potential. I'll also throw in
Zidane.
I'll throw in Zidane Iqbal, but I'll also throw in Fernandez over at left back.
Oh yeah,
Our only goal against in the cup tie. He's absolute class.
Mm-hmm.
And of course,
fantastic. We've got so many young players in there that are going to come in. Yeah. Like even if they don't make it, they will be. Even if they don't make it, not every young player is going to make it. We know that. But even if they don't make it, this club will do everything absolutely possible to find them a level that suits them. And I'm hoping some of these guys make it in our top team and cement themselves and win stuff. It'd be great, but there's no guarantees. But the young players we have, there's some very good options there. There's some very good options, and we'll wait and see. But at the moment, all I can say is I'm proud of our academy boys, and we take it.
I love watching this. Isak Aaron Hansen. I made a tweet about him a while ago. I said it's my sky is blue call of the day was him being called to the Norway under 16s or under 18s. Because when you have a player, Tjalen, which is of course we know Holland's cousin, who's a very good player in his own right, says the best player I've ever played against is Isak Aaron Hansen, who now plays in the academy for us. That's a pretty good praise. And from what I've seen, him and Charlie Savage together last year in the under 18s was a phenomenal pairing. He's another player I don't think is talked about enough, but be ready for him to be in the U23s either at the end of this year or next year and start putting the world on notice.
I agree.
He is my person to break into the first team by the time he's 19.
He certainly could. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. There is one player I'm gutted that didn't make it for us, and obviously he was released at the end of last season. He's now moved back to Spain. That's Arno Pugmal. I always believed, and you know this because I've said it a few times, I believe Pugmal was a natural replacement for Juan Mata. The type of player that he is, I just think he is. But
the IQ is very high.
But he's gone back to Spain, and I wish him well in Spain. So if he comes back later,
going back to France, I was not super happy to see him leave. I wasn't happy to see Pugmal leave. I think there are two players that we're going to regret letting go down the line. But of course,
Gomez we made in the end. I think we made the right decision. I wanted him to succeed, but the fact that he felt he demanded more money than what he was making to stay. I'm like, you didn't earn it. I'm sorry, but no, you did not.
He didn't take his chances.
Yeah.
I was sad to see him go. He didn't deserve to stay with his attitude. It kind of reminds me of Memphis Depay.
Mm-hmm.
He had that potential to be such a great player if his attitude was correct.
If it was, yeah. It's just a shame that he felt... his comments about Mata and Lingard about not specifically those two, but there was players in his position that he felt he should be getting more minutes ahead of. You need to earn it. It's not just deserved, but he did deserve more games. It was a bit crap when him and Chong were here and they were playing only one game every few months, and then it wasn't a particularly great performance, and then
you didn't see him again for a month.
Exactly. I think if they got more time, they would have suited. I thought he would have been great for us, but
I like Chong being off at Birmingham City. I think finally giving him a chance to really prove himself in an English league was such a crucial thing for him this year. He's 22, almost 23 now. I think he even might be 23 already.
Yeah,
it's getting to an age where you need to be ready to get into this first team, or else you're going to need to be moved on.
I think I've always wanted Chong to make it, but I don't think he's going to make it Man United. I think Birmingham City might actually make a permanent position for
I
him at the
think
end
they
of the season.
will.
And if he does, I'm all right with that. I think
Yeah, I
he'll
think that's a great
really
move for
suit.
him career-wise. I just don't think he's a United player. You need to, for our academy, it's been very much noticed. You need to be ready to make that first team jump by the time you hit about 21.
Mhm.
If you aren't at that ability or if you don't have the attitude, you're going to be moved on. We've seen it happen with plenty of players. We saw it happen with Fosu Mensah, was moved on because he got to 23, 24 and just was never there, was moved on. We saw it with, so many players down the line. You do not make it to a point where you're ready to come play for us as a Man United first team player by the 21, 22, you will be moved.
Yeah, and not everyone's going to make it as a young player, but it's not a problem. You're not going to make it at Man United, but you can make it at another club.
Yeah.
That's not a problem, and we'll
And it's
see
still
where
something
it
that
goes
we
from
can
there.
tout as we made that player. And that's been something that's been great.
Yeah,
If you're a Barcelona or Man United fan, our academies have made most of the really good talent around the world.
exactly. And that's not a bad thing.
No.
I look at our future, like what our future lineup could contain, and I think I'm looking at Menge, Hannibal, Shorter as three players that are going to be stapled in to the 11. Maybe Alanga, don't know, but there's at least three or four that could go in straight away. Zidane could be there. Charlie Savage, Hugo McNeil, number nines competing
Hugo
with
needs to
three.
get bigger, and so does McNeil. I will say
They
that.
do.
I think both need to
They
get
do.
bigger. Alonga's
They'll
done
get
a
there.
great job of that. Alonga's done a great job of really pulling a Greenwood and getting big and showing that
Yeah.
he really wants to get into the team. But with that, I think we've hit the hour mark here. So I will say thank you for watching to everybody. We hope you've really enjoyed this episode as much as we have. I know I've had a blast shooting this first episode, being able to, Reese, I love always talking with you. And of course, we'll talk in a bit as well on Rich's channel. It's always so much fun having you on and being able to talk with you about United. You're a dude who I massively respect, IQ wise, just banter wise as well, talking with and speaking on football.
Thanks very
But,
much, man.
yeah, so the links, of course, for Reese and for myself as well will be down in the descriptions. If you're new to our channel, like I said, please hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate every single one. Make sure you won't miss a single video. Like it if you enjoyed it. And of course, go check out the brand new merch in the description below. We will see you next week for next week's episode. Cheers.